pieces of Spider-Man trivia not reported by WatchMojo.com. Number 5. First Love. Who is Spider-Man's first love? If you're a fan of current-day Spider-Man, you'll probably say Mary Jane Watson. If you've been reading comic books, or if you saw the recent movie, you might say Gwen Stacy. Either of these answers would be good guesses, but both are wrong. The correct answer would be a toss-up between Liz Allen and Betty Bryant. Long before Peter meets Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy, there was a love triangle between Peter, Liz, and Betty. Technically, Betty would be Peter's first official love interest, as he actually refers to her a few times as the woman he loves. However, Liz Allen is the first girl Peter says he wants to date, but he never actually says he's in love with her. However, by the time Peter goes to college, he views Liz and Betty as just good friends, and both ladies end up with other members of the Parker supporting cast. Liz marries Harry Osborn, the son of the Green Goblin, while Betty first marries Ned Leeds, a reporter at the Daily Bugle, and also the supervillain known as the Hobgoblin, only not really, and then she dates Peter's longtime bully rival, Flash Thompson. Speaking of which, number 4. Bully Flash Thompson is both a war hero and superhero. If you're a fan of the Spider-Man movies or cartoons, chances are what you know about Flash Thompson is he's the classic high school jock bully. Well, that's true, but he's also one of the most developed characters in Spider-Man's supporting cast. Flash starts off as a dumb athlete, ironically picking on nerd Peter Parker, all the while being Spider-Man's most faithful fan. But then shortly after high school, Flash is drafted into the army and sent to Vietnam. He became a war hero, but his life was met with tragedy that exceeded those of Peter Parker's. He was injured several times, accused of being a supervillain, prison, alcoholism, and even losing his legs while saving the lives of other soldiers in Iraq. But in the end, the boy who idolized Spider-Man eventually became Venom, but as a good guy working alongside the Avengers. Yeah, being Venom. No way that could go bad. Number 3. Peter Parker was sexually abused as a child. Sorry, not all trivia is fun or funny. One piece of trivia every true Spider-Man fan knows, and wishes they didn't, is before becoming Spider-Man, Peter Parker was the victim of sexual abuse at the hands of an older boy named Skip Westcott. It's all revealed in Spider-Man Power Pack number 1, a special PSA comic to raise awareness on different forms of child abuse. Most Spider-Man fans suggest this story is not part of Spider-Man canon. However, the events are referenced in a later comic book where Spider-Man mentions Skip abused him, and he used to blame himself for it. Sorry, Spider fans, Parker felt a bad touch. Number 2. Peter Parker is dead. During the filming of this video, we are currently in the middle of the Superior Spider-Man story arc, which deals with the effects of Peter Parker dying and his villain Dr. Octopus taking over his body. But what if I told you Peter Parker was dead long before that? In 1996, Ben Reilly, then believing himself to be the real Peter Parker, finds a stack of bones in a Spider-Man suit. After doing a series of DNA tests, it is revealed that the bones have the same genetic code as Peter Parker. Oddly enough, at that time, sharing Peter Parker's DNA wasn't a big deal. It was assumed this was just a Peter Parker clone, and back then there were at least 3 other Peter Parker clones walking around. The idea being that maybe Boney was the original clone and Ben or Peter were some kind of other clone. However, when Marvel finally ended the whole clone storyline, they decided to kill off Ben Reilly, and they did this by beating him, stabbing him, blowing him up, and dropping him off a building. And when he died, he disintegrated into ash, and this was to assure Peter Parker and the fans that Ben Reilly was the clone and Peter was the real one. It was later stated in the Osborn Journal that Boney was put there to screw with Spider-Man's head, which frankly became Marvel's way of saying a wizard did it. But wait a minute, old Boney has Peter Parker's DNA, and he didn't disintegrate, which apparently clones do, so he's not a clone. Boney is Peter Parker. Peter Parker is dead. Number 1. Organic web shooters. So if you saw Watch Mojo's trivia on Spider-Man, they make mention how Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films use organic web shooters and not mechanical ones, like the comic books do or the Amazing movie. But that's only half the story. A true Spider-Man fan knows that when pitching the idea of Spider-Man, Stan Lee originally wanted the hero to have organic web shooters. But the idea was canned because of the comic book code stating that a character cannot be shown emitting a bodily fluid within a comic book. As a workaround, Lee decided that instead of Parker shooting out a web naturally, like a real spider, he would invent a mechanical way to shoot his webs, and the classic web shooters were born. But were the mechanical web shooters really necessary? What possible problem could the ultra-conservative comic book code have against a story about a teenage boy who shoots out a stream of white sticky fluid? You know what? Never mind. I'm Mr. Divery, and that was One Geek's opinion.
If I say it one more time, if I say it one more time, if I say it one more time.